Hello, travelers, and welcome to another episode of Vertical Stars Podcast 4th season. My loyal listeners, thank you for continued support. This is an amazing episode because Susan Ruttan boards the mothership. She plays Gladys on A Man on the Inside on Netflix. Now come on board as we go traversing the stars. Hi, Miss Ruttan. Thank you for coming for the Traversing Stars podcast.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
It's totally my pleasure. Like I said, I really loved you in A Man on the Inside. You were absolutely fantastic. So this is a great honor to have you on the show.
Oh, thank you so much.
No problem. So I start off with a question of inspiration. Who inspired your love of acting and who your earliest influences?
My earliest influences in acting was the Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. That was really the first movie I ever saw. I think that was my first brush with feminism. But you know, I never thought about being an actor, so it was something that came to me by accident. So uh, that's I'm an accidental actor. That's me.
Well, recently you played the role of Gladys on a
Yeah.
great show called A Man on the Inside by the person who did The Good Place.
Yes.
So how did you get involved with that show?
I got an audition. I got amazingly, we don't get to go in very often for auditions now, but in this instance, I did. And when I read the script, I went, "This is mine." I just knew it was mine, and if I didn't get it, it would be like really like breaking the law of acting. Um, and I went in, and I was so happy to see humans in person. I was kind of burbling my way through it and I fell in love with them in that room and then they hired me and that's it. I know they saw other people they didn't just see me, but they made the choice that I felt they really should have.
Well, like I said, you were absolutely terrific in
Thank
Gladys. I believe this is a compliment when I say you. I 100% believed that you were suffering from some form of dementia. I know I because of your acting, not because of you, but you obviously were very the part felt so genuine and real. When you got the part, what did they tell you about Gladys? What insights did they give you into the character?
Basically, they told me that it was a transition. That's all they really informed me of, is that from the moment we first saw her, that was she was not in there yet, and that I had to find the transition gently through the episodes. Um, and it was kind of like dipping your toe in the pool and then just submerging, gently, gently submerging into her. Um, and I never felt like, it's one of those roles where I never felt like I had to act. I just put her, I just became her. Um, and it was genuine for me, very genuine, very moving and challenging at the same time because it was a lot of sadness. It was very sad to lose yourself.
Because that's the part I wondered about in your performance. Because
Hmm.
obviously, I mean, on the inside, while it's dramatic elements, is also very much a comedy, and your
Hmm.
character there's such a sadness to the character as well, but there's also humor. Like, where were you figuring out the line to walk between making sure it wasn't, also you couldn't be so sad for a show that's a comedy, but you can't make it funny because it's such a serious
Yes.
illness. Where did you define the line for yourself?
Well, one moment my mother had dementia at the end of her life, and it was her birthday, and I said, "Mom, happy birthday." She goes, "Yeah, I'm 92." And I said, "No, you're only 91." She goes, "I'm only 91." And she was so excited to not be a year older. But that was sort of, some of Gladys for me. Um, uh, I don't know. You're not, when you're in that person, when you're that person, I don't think about, for whatever reason, I don't think about what the next step is. I just let it sort of seep into me. And then because her life had been so full of fantasy and the theater and costumes, and I was a costume designer personally.
Oh
So
yeah.
when I read the script, I thought, oh, they wrote this for me. But it was difficult. It stayed with me. Um, uh, that fear of losing your mind, you
Hmm.
know. I think so much of that is around these days that many of us experience that same fear. Like I've never had a good memory, so it's not like it's just happening now. So I can
Right.
say, no, it's always been there. I'm not falling into the abyss right yet. Yeah.
So when you're thinking about Gladys as an individual, did you feel, did you view her as someone who was a sad person? Was she lonely? Was she happy? Like how did you like define who she was in them? Because you kind of did create an entire life for her in very short periods of time.
Yes. I think she was somebody who stayed in her memory of being a costume designer, which was always a wonderful thing for her. She had this, you saw the room that I was in with my sewing machine and all the costumes and everything around. What a beautiful place that was. And I think that it made her safe in there because that was her safe space, safe memories. Um, and then when somebody tried to pull her out of that, by like Ted testing her,
Mm.
it was really, really frightening to have to say, to not say it. I don't know what you're doing. I
Right.
don't know what you're saying. Um, and I honestly, acting is kind of magic, isn't it? I don't really know how it happens. I think I just love this character so much that I wanted to give her everything I could.
Like as you mentioned the moment when Ted playing Charlie is quizzing Gladys, and she starts getting very upset, very angry.
Mhm.
Is how much of that is scripted? How much of that was just your knowledge of how someone with dementia would feel as they start realizing they don't know these answers? How did you approach that?
Well, having known other people who had dementia and know that this is the first rule of dementia. If somebody says to you, when's my wife coming? And the wife's been dead for 5 years, you say, I don't know. I'll check and see if I can find out. You don't deny the reality that they're in because that creates frustration, grief, sad, everything negative. You have to try to maintain a positive, agree with what they're saying. And if there's some way you can gently give them a truth, do that. But for the most part, they're where they are, and it's only going to get worse. So denying their reality is the wrong thing to do. So that's how I felt like somebody was denying my reality. And that's extremely frightening, extremely frightening because my belief system is then gone.
Now, another aspect of the show, without giving away any spoilers, there's obviously the a mystery that's involved in the background of the story, and
Mhm,
Gladys becomes a part of that mystery.
mhm.
Without giving away too many spoilers, how informed were you about the outcome of the mystery?
How important was I?
Oh no, how informed were you about it? Like, did
How
they tell you
informed?
ahead of time, like,
Oh,
oh, by the way?
no, we read all of the scripts in advance.
Oh, okay.
I knew in the beginning and I was thrilled. No, I knew in the beginning what was going to happen. So I knew also that that's the direction I had to go in. I could not have done it had I not known the path, and where the beats were, what the steps were. And also the truth of it is I could not have done it without Ted. Ted is an amazing actor and so present. When he looks in your eyes, he's really looking. He's not just acting, looking at you. He is completely present. So everything that I did, it was a just bounced off of him, and he gave it back to me. So I don't think there's another actor that I could have had the same result with.
I would say Ted Danson is such a wonderful actor. It's kind of funny. I'm not sure I fully appreciated him as an actor when I saw him in Cheers or
Mhm.
Becker, but in The Good Place, which is one of my favorite shows of all time, I really appreciated how good he was. So that's why
Yes.
I watched A Man on the Inside, and his performance is once again, as I said with yours, just so genuine. I mean, the moment when you guys are together. I mean, I don't normally would say that to a guest, but it felt like you're watching definitely an Emmy worthy scene. You know,
Uh,
especially that first episode. I think it was episode 5 when you guys are first together. It was so
uh-huh.
extraordinary how you guys played off each other.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I just adore him as a human and as an actor. Really believe that without him, I couldn't have done what I did. And then we had, our producers and writers and directors and everybody. It was I said this that when I walked off the set for the last time, which was really hard, I said if I never work again, I will have had this. And I felt that I went on to work after that, but I thought this nothing can top this. The cast, the crew, the production staff, the everybody, they were just perfect. Everybody got along. There was never a harsh word, never a hurry up. Um, the only sadness I had personally was that I didn't get to work with any of the other actors
Yeah.
except Catherine, my sort of nurse caretaker, who I've become really good friends with. And I said, if I ever get dementia, you have to come and take care of me.
Very cool. Well, like I said, you guys, everyone did so well. Also, the show was created by, I believe, the pronunciation Michael Schur or
Michael
Schur,
Schur and
who
Morgan
did once
Hackett.
again one of my favorite shows of all time, The Good Place. What was he on set? Was he like to work with, and
He
what
was
insight did he offer?
always present, and he directed. He told us the whole story about. It was based upon a documentary, a mole on the inside, I think it was called. That's really good if you get a chance to watch it. Um, and he somebody told him about it, and he talked to Morgan, and they went, yeah. And then they went, who can we get to play the lead? And then we went, Ted Danson, he's so horrible, but maybe he can do it. And so the they are all really good friends. And he came on board and just went from there. And now, of course, they've been picked up for another season.
Yep.
But though sadly, um, uh, we won't be going with it. All
Right.
the actors in that environment won't. And a couple of actors were crying about it, going, they didn't know. I said, but we read the script. She goes, I didn't think that was for real. We're just kidding about that part. Um, but yeah, it also, um, it also, I thought it was so amazing that so many people are watching this show and it's about old people.
Hmm.
you know, that it has drawn in everybody, all ages. And I think it's done so much for an aging community that they have lives and interests and love and people care for them. And, it's all there. We're not just these invisible people. Um,
Well, I think what's
on the
I mean,
sideline.
Honestly, I connected through Michael Schur. I know he was part of the show, and I wanted and I liked what he did before. But I think what I found what's so great about Man on the Inside is that yeah, it does deal with old people and someone. I mean, I'm in my 40s. I'm not in a nursing home, but there's such a realness to it. And there's such a a human
Yeah.
aspect to that world and that show that's undeniable. And
Yes.
it's funny without being silly. It's moving without being sappy. It does so many things so well.
Yes. I wish you could have been on the set.
So do I.
Yeah, the whole nursing home was built on a stage. So we didn't have to go anywhere to be in that. The only outside shot I had was one when we were sitting out on the patio thing. But other than that, all our rooms were there. Every room was there, and it was real. When you walked in the door, you felt like you were really there. I think they shot they and I know they shot some stuff up in San Francisco and another house on location, but for us residents of there, we were all there. What a fine group of actors. Oh my gosh.
I would have loved to been there. There's so many people on that show who I would love to have a chance to speak to as well as you know. I think one thing that's very interesting is that the show, I mean, the concept of, nursing homes and especially the memory, I forgot what they call it, the
Neighborhood.
neighborhood.
Yes.
There's a sadness to all that. How did you guys keep things light enough? I mean, was it sad to be thinking about being in this retirement home of a Pacific View?
No, outside of the characters, no. No, everybody was so happy to be there. You couldn't override that even with the sadness. I mean, actors process stuff. There were a couple of scenes that I had to like take some space afterward and kind of go settle myself. But gosh, Sally Struthers and I became friends. Catherine, of course, I told you she's my future caretaker.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So no, I loved everybody. John Getz, Stephen McKinley Henderson, Clyde Kasatsu, Laurie Tanchit. Yeah, just everybody there uh, just was brilliant.
Now there's a line in the show that I kind of wanted to explore a little bit with you, if that's
Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
Gladys mentions that she missed what she calls her old personality, which I thought was
Yes.
very interesting. So, what did she mean by this, and how did you envision? Because you're playing her at a certain point of her life, but you obviously are implying, that she did have this other aspect of herself before. So, how did you incorporate all that aspect of her, and what do you think she meant by old personality?
Well, if you imagine a person who is clearly in control of her life, doing costumes for show after show, you have to be
Yeah.
organized to do that. You have to be inspired. It's creative. It's a having done it, I know how what a big job that is. Um, and to not be able to grab that anymore, to have it become like kind of a memory, but not one you can grab hold of. It's really terrifying. Um, and I think that that's what she missed is those aspects of her personality where she was in charge, where she knew who she was and what she wanted to do, and she didn't feel frightened a lot of the time.
And there's another great moment between you and Ted Danson, I'll say as Charlie, where as she's talking to him, she kind
Mhm.
of realizes that Georgie is not actually there. And it's a very heartbreaking moment, and it's this moment of transition between her interaction with, like I said, with Ted Danson's character, which is lighter and very personable, and then there's that quietude that comes into it when she realizes Georgie's not there. So how did you handle that build up? Was there a moment of transition that you kind of like keyed in on? Like this is the moment where she has to show this like change in her facial expression or whatever, her body language.
Yes. If you consider that that part of her self is kind of simmering, it's underneath everything, and that she's in a physical position where she was for many years, repairing, fixing, building, sewing, costumes, and she just automatically went back in history to George Papard, uh, and chastising him, and then to be yanked out of that, yanked literally, like
Yeah.
ripped out of it. Uh, it wasn't hard. It was hard, but it wasn't hard. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It was if I kept that simmer going, and I think um, I think for many older people, older than me even, uh, there is a certain level of fear that resides, especially with everything that's going on in the world. You're afraid to go to the ATM, you're afraid to walk down the street, you're afraid to answer the door, you're afraid if the phone rings, you don't know who it is. I think for Gladys, that kind of fear was really there all the time. Fear that she would, I don't know, not be found out, but that it would all explode and that she would lose everything completely.
Now, in your head canon, did Gladys and Charlie ever make it to the play Guys and Dolls or go out together to see one?
No, no, we did not. No, we did not. He thought it was a great idea. He thought it was a wonderful idea, and it was too much pressure. He would have been putting too much pressure on her. So, and he got that finally. I mean, I think it's a lovely thought. But again, it's like, I can fix you. Let me just take you back in time and I can fix you. Um, and the best thing that he did was just sitting with her, you know, being
Yeah.
there and talking to her and engaging her on her level.
I think there
Yeah.
was an interesting moment as well. Towards the end of the show, that can wait the spoilers. He's talking about how people pulled away from Gladys. That's why he was
Yes.
noticing her. In your once again in your head canon, did Gladys realize it that people had pulled away from her?
Uh, that's a good question. She might have, but I don't think that she acknowledged it as much, because you remember in the first moment where she says, I don't like this, I don't like to be in these things. I always leave them wanting more, and she goes off into her own room. And I think the pressure of having conversations with people is
Hmm.
just too much at that point. But I do know, recognize that pulling away, almost like it's contagious, because as I said earlier, it's something we all dread, is
Hmm.
losing our minds. Um, yeah, and I I think that being lonely, I don't know. I don't know if that's a factor, because when you're by yourself, you don't have any pressure. So maybe the loneliness is not there. It's relief rather.
Well, like I said, I mean, on the Inside has proven a huge hit by Netflix standards, and the fact that Netflix renewed it, honestly, is a sign of confidence because Netflix often doesn't renew things for weird reasons, but it definitely renewed this.
Yes.
What has the experience been like being on a show that's been receiving such acclaim? And at least I feel like your scenes were the strongest of the entire series. I mean, you
Wow.
definitely had like I felt like the emotional center in many ways, often of that show is when you were on it and kind of explain. You gave kind of give a face and a voice to what the whole talking about when they're talking about like age and memory loss and all this other stuff. So what has it been like to be part of this great series?
It was my privilege. It's my absolute privilege. I think I would have hated whoever did it instead of me. No, would have hated. Yeah, I would have hated. Uh, I honestly, I love the whole thing so much, and not that I want to ride on the coattails of this series forever, but it's not a bad ride. People
Right.
have people love the show so much, and to express love for what I did. I'm very happy about that. Very happy.
So what's next for you?
I don't know, I just did a pilot for called Woodstockers, about the people who never left, excuse me, back east at Woodstock and at the field, and it was pretty great. I don't know, it's a spec pilot, so we'll see what happens with it, but I think it's a fantastic idea. There was a funeral scene in it. We shot it, most of it in the town of Woodstock, and there's a funeral scene, and we had to get extras they had to get extras for the funeral. And so they put out a call. Like, 40 people showed up, and they all looked like they never left, which was really cool. And they're taking a break. We're taking a break. They're setting up another shot. And one of the people came over and said, hey man, is it okay if we smoke pot over here? And the director went, I don't know why not. So no, that was great fun. It was fun to go from that show to Woodstockers, more comedy, more, you know. And I got to drive a Volkswagen bus, 1970
Very
Volkswagen bus.
cool.
Yeah.
Well, Ms. Rattan, it was an absolute honor to speak with you. Like I said, you were so tremendous as Gladys. I greatly appreciate it. And you really elevated the series. And I want to thank you so much for coming on my show and talking with me.
Thank you so much. You're the greatest.
Oh, thank you
I
so
really
much.
appreciate you. And I
Have a
love your background.
Oh, thank you. It's my whole pun of traversing stars and my star I'm
Yes,
talking to.
yes, yes. It's really great. Oh,
But
good. Well, maybe we'll talk again sometime.
I want to thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You
Have a
take
good night.
care. You too. Bye-bye.